Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Blackhawk County Board of Supervisors for July 28th, 2026. Roll call, please, Ms. Showalter.
Schwartz. Schwartz. I see him. Hall.
Here.
Brandt.
Here.
Kurtenbach.
Here.
Leyland.
Here. Would everyone please join us for a moment of silence as we reflect on our actions this morning? Thank you. Would you please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1 is the agenda received as proposed or amended.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Karen, I see Chris is on there.
Got it. Thank you.
And the agenda is received. Item 2 is public comments. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on something today that is not on the agenda? Anyone online? Right, moving on to item 3, claims and payments. This is a resolution that the Board of Supervisors approve expenditures and that the county auditor be authorized and directed to issue payments against the various settlement of such claims as allowed.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Weiner.
Good morning, Board. Our total bill payment today is $605,198.85. Of that, the Sheriff 60/40 Fund, we are paying $43,513.76. That's significantly higher than typical because we're paying the first half of services for a counselor in the jail that Department of Correction provides, and that amounts to $40,000. Payroll today is just over 1.7 million, including all payroll taxes and everything. And then for our larger payments today, we are making a payment to Performance Resources Consulting, that's Ted Garnett's firm, for $80,700. Already mentioned the $40,000 payment to Department of Corrections. And let's see. We are making a payment to Iowa Plains Signing for the fiscal 26 pavement marking project for $172,148.95. And that seems to be all the large and significant payments today. Everything appears to be in order unless you have questions for me.
Any questions? This is a resolution. Please answer as your name is called.
Before I do that, I don't think that they can hear us online.
Did you hear that comment, Rory? Karen said she didn't think they could hear us online.
Allison said we're all muted.
Muted from speaking. It's okay.
She said it's fixed now.
Good. Okay, super. Thank you.
All right. Kurtenbach.
Yes.
Brandt.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Schwartz. Leyland.
Yes. Receive project updates from department heads and elected officials.
Morning, Board. Brian Brennan, Assistant County Engineer. A lot of updates for construction this week. So our Winslow Road Bridge project does continue. They do have the bridge removed for the most part at this point, so it's good to see them progressing up there. Our seal coat project did just finish up this week as well, so they finished that. We did have Denko out doing some grout stabilizing around a lot of our culverts throughout the county, and they just finished that up yesterday. And our bridge crew is actually on schedule to try and set the deck down on Hoff Road sometime this week. So hopefully they'll be finishing up with that project sometime in the next week, week and a half, and then we can get moved out to the next site out on Oxley Road. So Other than that, we do have some of the blades out this week. No, they are looking at getting a second round of dust control going, so they're touching up some of the dust control locations before those vendors show up in the next week or two. Other than that, it's pretty routine, just continuing with project development and other things for next year.
Thanks, Ryan.
Any other updates from department heads? Anyone online? Moving on. Item 5, minutes approved for July 25, 2026.
I wasn't here. So moved.
That's right, I haven't read them.
Second.
I can second too. All right, thanks. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Item 6 is the consent agenda. Following items are voted on by one single resolution unless someone wishes to remove something for discussion.
So moved.
Second.
This resolution, please answer as your name is called.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Brant,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes. Item 7A, resolution that the contract between Blackhawk County and the National Cattle Congress for marketing funding for the 2026 fair in the amount of $25,000 be approved and that the chair be directed to sign for same.
So moved.
Second.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'll apologize ahead of time. The weather's affecting my voice just a little bit today. And I just got back from the Warren County Fair where it's super hot. So, excuse me. I want to thank you for allowing us to request these funds and hope that you all received the materials that I sent out after the last meeting. I won't reiterate all the things I talked about before, but I did want to bring attention to the county funding from all the counties that I sent out. You'll see, and I kind of analyze like the largest counties, the largest fairs, and almost 100% of the time, there is some funding that comes from the county. The one exception, is Scott County. It's my understanding that they have been funding some significant capital improvements, not all of the capital improvements, but kind of chunks at a time, rather than ongoing funding. So that's kind of the anomaly, but I think you'll see that it's pretty well supported by all the different counties. I also sent out digital ads that we just received. I think you'll find them very fun. I think they'll get attention. This is an area that we've wanted to hit, and we're finally getting that done through On Media. The On Media proposal that I provided outlines all of the ways that those will be used. I won't go into all of that. It's not my area anyway to understand all of that, I have to admit. But I think you'll find those really fun and very innovative. Also, I do want to say there was a question last time towards Tavis and Experience Waterloo regarding how they support us. They are paying for our security this year. So the Waterloo Police Department provides our security. And Tavis's group, I'm sorry, I forgot that at the heat of the moment, is funding our security for this year. That's my understanding.
Is that for the whole event?
It might be from council. I don't think it's
Oh,
from
okay.
Experience Waterloo, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, but somehow that's, that's what I had heard.
Okay.
So,
Sounds
sorry, I didn't want to ignore
maybe it's
that.
news to me. I guess we'll find
Okay,
out.
that
Guess what?
might be so, yeah. So,
Surprise.
are there any, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean surprise, I just want to make sure that we didn't, you worried that we did that. That was what I heard, so. So, do you have any questions about the materials? Is there any additional information I can provide?
I did have one question I was going to ask, and I talked to Michelle about it. When I looked back at the county funds, the sheets, you provided quite a few, and I know you have every year, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I said, I had questioned and said, I thought that Blackhawk County had invested $25,000 for 2 years.
It looks like there's a time lag because you have. I'm thinking it's just a time lag, the way the reporting comes out. Sorry, I meant to mention that as well, because you have funded the last 2 years, but I think it's the way they're putting the report together, that there's a lag in the reporting for you. And
the
that could
other-
be the same for other counties as well.
Sure, sure. And the other Black Hawk that's mentioned is 4-H.
The 4-H fair, correct.
I know we have done that at a small scale before, but
Yes, you're correct, but I do believe it's the time lag involved. Because we do report that to the Association of Iowa Fairs. It's just, I'm not sure how they put that report together.
it's interesting though. When
It
you look
is.
at the attendance at those and some of the counties that you would least expect that really provide a significant.
They do, and some of those, again, have to do with capital expenditures, going to the counties and asking for particular projects. I think you'll see bumps up. Clay County, for example, had the big flood that happened. You know, there was a bump there. So I'm guessing that the county provided some funds because of things that happened with that.
Now, it looks like Scott County probably kind of takes the lead. I could be wrong, but with 300,000 attendees.
They do. That's at the Mississippi Valley Fair. A lot of people don't really think about that fair. They always think of Clay County, what the Cattle Congress and the State Fair is the big ones. But because it's way over there, people tend to forget it. I've been to that fair a few times, been to the facilities before. It's a very nice fair. Very well supported by both Illinois and Iowa.
Are there counties that, this is just me kind of being curious, that no longer do fairs, that had fairs and no longer do them? And only think of that because the Cattle Congress becomes our county fair. It has changed a lot over the years. If we were to not do the Cattle Congress, I'm assuming we would have nothing in its place.
That's correct. Yeah, that's the only fairgrounds that we have, which is why we're working really, really hard to make improvements right now.
Can you expand on some of that? Because I know that there's several that's reached out to me and concerned about us money when there's events that are being told or if they are going to be able to continue at the Cattle Congress grounds.
We are working very hard to continue our fair. We're right now at a point where we can't talk a lot about it, just based on the facts, but you will hear very soon whether or not we will or not. We will have the Cattle Congress Fair no matter what this year, so you can count on that. But we are working very hard to make sure everything continues. Electric Park has been difficult for us because of the hail damage and roof problems. We have not been able to rent that out, which has highly impacted our cash flow and our ability to hold events. But we do have a crew working on that. They're anticipating telling us that it will be going by the time Cattle Congress comes around. I'm sure will all depend on contractors and that sort of thing. But the entire roof will be replaced, as well as a portion of the south end. Significant damage that was done by the water has to be taken care of. So the whole south side will be basically new inside. So it's been very difficult with that we've had to turn people away because we just can't rent it out. And that has caused people to think that we're not going to continue.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. And if I could tell you more, I would, but I can't.
Well, it looks like in population, I think for attendees was 62,000 something last year. So,
Yeah,
and that was up from the previous year. So
Yeah.
I know weather related always unfortunately plays
Yeah.
into it, so we'll see.
2 years ago was really hard. We had a lot of rain and it brought our numbers down. You'll see that. Weather is the big bugaboo for fairs. Whether it's too hot right now, it can be too hot. And otherwise, rain.
We'll appreciate all the work you and others are doing.
Thank you, Linda. And you're all invited to judge the chili cook-off again as well. Linda knows how fun that
I
is.
like that. Great. Are there any other questions or any comments?
No?
Okay. This is a resolution. Please answer as your name is called.
Hall,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Kurtenbach,
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes. Item B, resolution that the addendum 4 to the strategic plan engagement letter / contract between Blackhawk County and Ted Garnett for account-ecution review and practice workshops, 3 sessions, in the amount of $15,000 be approved, and that the chair be directed to sign for same as recommended by Amanda Fesenmeyer, HR Director.
So moved.
Second.
Morning, Board. Amanda Fesenmeyer, Human Resource Director. So last week, the culture team presented It was myself and Conservation Director Mike Hendrickson, our action plan. If you recall, a few weeks ago, the priority, number 2 for professional development and training, culture of accountability, also presented an action plan. This contract supports both of those. It really is the approval of the funding. It is under contracts, but ultimately we're really looking for the funding for the $15,000. And then it would just be, it is a training that's offered 3 times, beginning August 26th through the end of September, for supervisory staff to have additional support, tools, practice with preparing for one-on-ones that will be taking place later this year, as well as on accountability and how to have those conversations and build that trust. So, any questions on this process or request?
That would include us as well, correct?
Board of Supervisors, yes.
Yep.
Yep.
So we could kind of re-engage too. So.
We've had people sign up right now. Regardless whether this got approved, we were going to do something. But this will allow for Ted Garnett as well as Mike Hendrickson to kind of facilitate a majority of those. We're also going to have some more involvement possibly from other managers. But we're going to have kind of a pre-test that everyone's going to need to complete so that we can get a better idea exactly what people are looking for out of this training. So, all right.
I think you both can, like I say, both for reviewing, you probably haven't had time to take a look at it on that, but we needed to get the vote on funding on this week, so thank you.
Yes, because the first session is in a month, less than a
Yeah.
month.
Well, if there are no more questions, this is a resolution. Please answer as your name is called.
Brandt,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Kurtenbach,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes. Item 8, other business. This is a motion to approve Spice at Egypt food truck to use Blackhawk County grounds on August 13, 2026, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the southeast parking lot of the Pinecrest Building located at 1407 Independence Avenue, Waterloo, Iowa 50703.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Need a pillow?
Motion carries.
Sorry.
That was a strange return. Thank you, guys.
Stick to prayer.
Item B, motion to direct the county auditor to advertise for a public hearing to be held at 9:05 a.m. Tuesday, August 11th, 2026, in Boardroom 201 of Blackhawk County Courthouse on the adoption of multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan for Blackhawk County.
So moved.
Second.
Probably that'll be, yeah, that's just setting up the hearing date for everybody, and you'll get to hear the details then. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item C, this is a resolution that the minor plat of survey submitted by Tyler Ford to create a 1.5 acre parcel zoned AR, Agriculture Residential District, for the purpose of constructing a new residence located at 8152 Buck Ridge Road be approved, and that the county auditor be directed to certify a copy of this resolution to the Blackhawk County Recorder.
So moved. Second.
Uh-oh.
Hold on. Is that the aliens?
Anyone want comments from Joseph is here, or everybody got questions?
Joseph, I do have a question on that property, if you wouldn't mind. When I'm looking at that area that's looking at being sectioned off, there's a strip in front of that. Is that a former airfield? Is it, and this would be right on the end of that? That's my concern there.
Sorry, can we hold on? There we go. Never mind.
You got it.
Should I re-ask?
Yeah.
So the question, Joseph, looking at the section that they're looking at dividing off here for that home, there's a strip that looks like it might have been a landing strip or something in the past or currently. Just concerned about that being close to where they're looking at building this new home. Can you elaborate on that?
Joseph Gallman, zoning administrator. So in the past, in the middle of that Buck Ridge subdivision, there is a section that's zoned AL still. It was originally there as a landing strip. It is not used for that anymore. There's a home on that property now, so it's used for a residence. So it would not be used for a landing strip at all.
So that was prior to the home being there. I think
Yeah,
it was
it's been there
just-
for quite a while, I believe.
is there a possibility of that being used as a landing strip again in the future? Or is there something that needs to be done to alleviate that?
Since there's a home on it, I don't believe it ever would be used as a landing strip again. If it does, though, landing strips do have to receive approval right now through, similar to the other one. The other one had to get a rezone, and so that approval was granted with that rezone. If the land is already zoned AL, then it has to go through Planning and Zoning Commission, and then I believe Board of Supervisors still to receive approval. So if somebody did want to put a landing strip in there, they would have to come
They'd have to
before a
come
couple
back then.
commissions. So,
Okay, that was my concern. They'd have to come back and to use it again that way.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
And it was unanimous, I was gonna say, at the PNC group
Yep.
too. And it was for a home for the father to build next to the son. So, okay. This is a resolution, please answer as your name is called.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Brant,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes. Item D, discussion and possible board action to establish a procedure allowing routine travel requests to be submitted as consent agenda item.
I added this, we had discussion at the last policy board meeting. They're gonna be coming with a new, travel policy to us here soon. But one of the questions that came up at the last month's discussion was, is there a reason each of the travel requests need to be a separate item? Or could it just be something that goes on the consent agenda? If there's still questions on it, we can pull it out of the consent agenda if there's a question on the travel. But, kind of like, we get times where you get one after another, where it's not really, there's really no discussion, there's no questions on it. But,
Usually our staff get up and tell about it, what
Yeah.
they're doing, and where they're going now and what. Oh, there is, but. I
the
would
question
say
just
no,
came
no.
up, the policy, I said I'd bring it up for discussion and see where the rest of the board members felt on it and kind of go from there.
What's routine? I guess I'd say what's routine? That's, since, that's just my question. When I look at what's in the consent agenda and how routine those things are typically. Oh, thank you.
Amanda?
I was gonna say what routine was is kind of my.
Yeah,
question.
so just speaking from being on policy review committee, how we're also looking at modifying some of the, I guess, authorization. So right now, travel requests, those must come to the board for anybody who is department head, who doesn't report to an autonomous board. So it's basically the direct reports of the Board of Supervisors and their staff. So the policy is being just redrafted, along with many other kind of changes, because it hasn't been looked at in quite some time. But we did talk about how if, it really would be only, I guess, Board of Supervisors, department heads that would be requesting, I believe, overnight travel for approval. But yeah, so that is one of the things that, well, does that belong on consent agenda if it's already budgeted? Because right now the travel policy says whether it's budgeted or unbudgeted, you have to come and get approval. Sometimes that feels maybe a little redundant, especially if you're having to submit it for like all your staff to go to. So we are trying to just, I guess, simplify it in some ways, but the consent agenda kind of got discussed. We've talked about that even with replacing a vacant position. But, it's already budgeted. That's something, does that just go before? Or we even talked about policy updates that there's no change, should those just go on consent? Lori, the board emanated, and myself talked a little bit about consent agenda. She asked what I recalled of it when I did that role, and I said it's just always been structured that way. I don't even know who really owns. I think it's the board that owns the consent agenda structure and, what goes on there, what doesn't. But even when we were talking about looking around at other counties, communities, how they have consent, it seems like everybody does it a little bit differently. But it was an idea that was kind of proposed, should this just go on? But if there was a question, or, then it could be pulled off. But yeah, the way that it's being framed, travel policy right now, how it's likely gonna be proposed is that the board would approve the same department heads, but they wouldn't necessarily approve their travel. Or, I'm sorry, the same department heads travel, but not their staff's travel. So for example, I bring travel requests for Anna and Cherry here for your approval. I would just have authorization to approve that as a department head. But if I travel somewhere, like a conference, I still have to put that on an agenda for your approval. So that's just some of the dialogue that was happening. And obviously, for you all in your travel as well, this policy now is including all elected officials. Most elected officials, once they have their certified budget, they can do what they want, with that. They don't come back here for approval for travel. With you being a 5-member board, you can't just, well, at least that's the way we have it arranged, where it would come to the board for approval for 1 member or 2 members to do travel for, whatever purposes, and subject to the same requirements under the policy as anyone else. So,
No, and I guess a distinction I look at is while most departments have budgets for training budgets, the board isn't aware of what those training dollars are for those different department heads versus staff or whatever too. So it is a one time, not that it couldn't be in a consent, but while it is not a routine, to me it's different every time and different for different departments. But I guess I'd like to see what other counties do when you say they do it differently, because I'm all for simplifying if it makes it simple, but I think what we have works so well that it's really, people get up, they explain a little bit what they're doing. If we don't want them to, we don't have to ask them to do that, but if we have questions, then they're there to do it. Otherwise, we have to remove it from the consent agenda. And it wasn't till about a week ago, attended the City of Waterloo's meeting and saw how many items they would remove from a consent agenda for more discussion later or to ask questions and have clarification. And I guess I'd kind of go back and forth with what we've done, and what has seemed to work hasn't had a lot of, I don't know, friction, but it just hasn't had a lot of discussion. It's just, these are the things that we basically know. If there is, you can remove them. I only remember maybe once in the past year or two, someone's removed one with a question. But I was gonna say, basically, they're so standard that there's no questions and we just move on, which does make the meeting move faster, smoother, whatever. But board members, I'd still be thinking that, I know we don't budget for our items separately. And we talk, at the beginning of the year, when we budget, we don't say like Rich is gonna go on 4 trips and Linda's gonna go on 2, and this is what mine are gonna cost or anything like that. So to me, it's just the first time that we typically ever see what we're doing as board members, and we approve that. So to me, that's part of that accountability and transparency part, that we're doing our jobs, so we have no problem with having that recognized on there, not just to put it in a consent for possible discussion. But that's just my thoughts on it right now. Doesn't mean that I couldn't look at a different way of doing it. It just seems like when you're looking at changing something that does make such a difference, even though it's a small, what seems like insignificant, I think it's worked well. From, like I said, when Gabby got stepped up the other day to explain a little bit more about the trip she was going on, and this being her first time she'd been at this conference, and she was, asked to then be a panel participant for the accessibility, I think, presentations. I just think that helps the board, and it's more information and good for us, but good for them as well to have some of that dialogue. But
Well, we were getting close with the travel policy, and I told them I'd bring it up for discussion to help the policy committee kind of get a feel where to move next with it for discussion, and I just, now we know.
And that's, again, I don't know that the policy was gonna, it always says board approval. That could be, of course, it could be consent, it could not be, it could just be its own and the other business on the agenda. But it did, prompt this, even beyond these types of requests, is there something to look at with your consent agenda? When we brought up all those policies, some of those were just, there's no changes, they've been reviewed. Is that just a separate approval every time, or should we just put those on consent? Because it's really, yep, we reviewed it, but there was no changes. So those are things too we're talking about for consent agenda, whereas a policy like travel policy, which is getting pretty much overhauled, that would have a lot more dialogue and a lot more just explanation as to what's changed versus something like, I think we had the checks, the one that Michelle had worked on. I don't think you had any changes on, I can't remember the name of it. But there was one we had when we went through all of those that had no changes, so
Yeah.
that's just another example. Could that just go on consent, or should it be separate? But those are things that, yeah, have been coming up in our policy review. It wouldn't be written in the policy like it has to be on consent or doesn't. It still just says board approval in general.
I
But it
think
would,
what I like about it, and to interrupt you, but
Oh,
I
you're
was gonna say
fine.
too, with it being a separate agenda item, like if it's on consent, the person could assume that it'll just be consent agenda and they wouldn't be here.
They won't
And they
show
need
up.
to be here either
Mhm.
way, quite honestly, to answer questions if it was in consent and have more, dialogue or not. So to me, when it's on the agenda, it would be kind of like a heads up, you'll be there to answer questions, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still open. Chris?
This is Chris. I like having it on the agenda as well, just because I appreciate there's not a lot of debate, because we're generally supportive of what our staff is assigned to do, but I appreciate the public discussion about it, because I think it has multiple benefits. And if we put it on, and of course, if we put it on consent, yes, of course, we could pull it out, but then that has a different connotation, like that not that we have a question about it, but that we're calling it into question, and there's just a different overtone when it becomes. And so I like keeping it on the agenda.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it too. Is people, especially for us, but people need to know. At least they have a right to know or to have access to like why we're doing certain trips or however many, so.
All right. Thank you very much for that
Now
feedback.
you know.
All right.
I'm sorry. You can make comment, sure. It's just discussion, possible action, and it doesn't sound like we're gonna be taking action anyway, just kind of having some discussion.
Steve Simon, Waterloo City Council. Just catching on what you guys are talking about. One thing that we do, as a mayor pro tem, I sit on the finance committee, so any travel that any city employee has, we approve it there. It goes to the city council for full approval. One thing that we started doing for the constituents is we have a larger group of people sometimes watching us and watching the dollars. They want to know what the money is being spent for. So what we started doing is having people that have gone to training somewhere to have them come up and speak before the finance committee and explain what they learned when they were gone. And that's got a good reception from the people because they get to see where their money's being spent and the training's being spent. So as you're doing it, I just thought I'd throw it in there because you guys sounds like you're redoing your policy, but I think people want to see where their money's being spent, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Rich has done a pretty good job of that, coming back from ISAC events and just giving a summary of things that were discussed that he learned to.
Yeah.
So, to Steve's point, yeah, I think that has impact.
Yeah, they were kind of asking for direction on where, if there's more they need to do in that travel policy before they brought it to us. And I just said, I'll bring it up. We'll have a discussion, give you more of a feel. So, yeah, that's,
The big distinction right now is, of course, having elected offices versus non-elected offices. And so that's always been kind of with any policy, it's the areas where, like again, approval, you can't require the recorder, the auditor to come and say, you approve their travel, right? Under Iowa code, once they have their certified budget, but I think there are ways, like in the year in review, to talk about training. We've talked about that. Certainly a suggestion, like what Councilman Simon brought up, could certainly work. But again, we always have that elected official versus non-elected official, what can be kind of enforced and what can't. But we all agree that this revised policy does allow us to have some paper trail, especially when you're getting reimbursement. And that's what the focus, it's the authorization to travel, but also to be reimbursed for things like mileage and meals and those types of things where even, right now with the policy, I don't know that every staff member traveling is coming through the Board of Supervisors, and it wouldn't under elected officials. Even under autonomous boards, those departments like conservations, VA, public health wouldn't come before here. Dispatch, for example, wouldn't. So we're just trying to kind of simplify that as well, and to have it apply. And we've looked at examples like Scott County, Lynn County, Polk County. Public Health Director Caitlin Emmerich and I have been working on this pretty heavily. She has quite a bit of examples of how travel things have worked and not worked with their staff. But yeah, open to any suggestions. And again, it will probably take a few rounds for us to even get through. It's taken us quite some time as a policy review committee to come and to just summarize and highlight the key changes. But that is one thing, trying to make it apply, but recognize that it doesn't require elected officials to come to the board for approval, but they have to follow the forms, the reimbursements, which most we have. That is just trying to keep it a little bit more clear, because right now it's a little tough to understand who follows it and who doesn't. But yeah, so any feedback, and when we bring it to you all, we'll give you probably a good week or two to read it and see the changes so that you can have questions or comments and things like that. But no, understood for the consent agenda. That's helpful. I do think there's maybe, well, I shouldn't say, but just, again, Board Administrative Aide and I talked in general about the consent agenda. If there's other things, but our understanding seems to be that's kind of up to the board to decide what's on there, what's not, what's routine. But yeah, it's interesting to see how various entities do it very differently. And so, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That
All
was
right.
drilled in our heads when we started. This is the board's agenda.
Yeah.
So anybody considered anything, I guess we're open for discussion. Thank
The
you.
one addition on slight deviation there on towards the consent agenda is actually food trucks, which we voted on earlier today. That seems like an item that is prime for a consent agenda item.
Yeah.
But I agree that the travel, recognize the interesting balance that we have to do with unelected and elected offices, but interested to see where they land.
We talked, I said too, if these were routine, the food trucks and that type of thing and what we had there, and there was a process in place, and I think we said there probably is between the health department looking at food and those venues, and us with Rory and his staff looking at, building and maintenance and the grounds and that type of thing. If there's a process in place that really makes that truly routine, and we know that when it shows up on agenda, those things have been done, maybe that is something we'd want to include.
I was wondering about the mobile clinic too, if that would be something that could be moved to consent.
Every time they use it, you mean?
Well, they're needing
Out on our property.
approval in the properties.
I don't think that would be that's not long-term though, isn't that? Isn't that just right now where they're having some difficulty with the,
I don't know. I guess at this point, I didn't think it would be a big thing as far as that being a consent agenda either.
I think my general thoughts on the consent agenda is to keep kind of as little as possible in there. I mean, I kind of like how it's been right now, that sometimes, we'll have a meeting that gets bombarded with a bunch of, mundane procedural stuff that could maybe have gone in there, but it's not on the regular that's so cumbersome that it's worth kind of taking away kind of a little bit more of the transparency part of it and the opportunity for more free discussion. And so, and so something like the mobile clinic, it's great. It's a good thing to highlight in our meeting that's going to be a particular place. So I like that we're giving that even just a tiny little spotlight, of a 30-second agenda item. I think that's okay.
and when you look at like today's agenda and you see most of it like insurance related or semi-annual settlements with the treasurer's office and some of those things.
That's
There's very
routine.
little time we'd ever discuss those, but yeah, should be done. Thank you all. All right, moving on to E, discussion possible board action on additional budget authorization policy, which I think was recognized as carryover policy previously, right?
Yes, there's different ways to wordsmith that, I guess.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what approach you want to take today. I can review the presentation I did in June again, if that's where you'd like to start.
Was that, you sent some slides to us earlier.
I did, they're the same,
Oh,
and I can go through those. I do have copies if you need a printed copy today of the document that I distributed then. just whatever your preference is.
Well, you have,
Let's walk through the slides, you think?
I don't know, that's everybody thought, I mean, open to, I
Pulling
mean, you
them
were
up
gonna,
now.
were you gonna tie them together with kind of like, here's where they are, I know you've got new state law and the proposal. I
Yep.
don't know,
Yeah,
depends on how, if
do
you're
it.
ready for that.
Okay. All right, so this will be a slight review, and I think we can get through this pretty quick. We all know we have new state law that we have to deal with that restricts how much we can have in our unassigned fund balance. So I've showed you our most recent audited fund balance types, and partly because it wasn't important necessarily, we tended to leave things in that unassigned, and so that was a fairly large pool. But that is about, not quite, but nearly double what the new state law allows you to carry in your unassigned. So that, brought up thinking through how do we address that. It's important, I think, that we maintain our financial strength. I'm not sure exactly, what the state's goals are, but we know how important it is to have reserves for unexpected things or cash flow, all those kind of things. So how do we preserve an amount that we need while still complying with the state law? So when we prepared the 27 budget, we did assign, if you will, many more pools of money. These are all things that were discussed and approved by the board at different times. So I just wanted to show you what it was for 27. So when I filed the 27 budget, we did bring that unassigned fund balance down dramatically so that we could meet that requirement. One of the other things that we can do is to allow departments to request to use funds beyond their original budget. And that's kind of what I am trying to propose here in this language, because we do have some departments and people that have been coming and requesting additional resources. But I don't think that all the county departments are either aware that that's even allowed or know how to do it. So I think I've really thought it would be better for all departments to have some kind of framework for if you need additional funds, what do you do? How do you come and ask for that? So I drafted what's actually a very short document. And part of this has examples in it that I would not use. I would not leave those in if you choose to adopt a policy. But I tried to set up some guidelines around it because I believe that the issue we have right now is temporary, and as we commit those funds and use those funds, we are not always likely to be in the enviable position that we're in today of having so much unassigned fund balance. So I tried to think through some guardrails you might want to use. Basically, the first part of this suggests that the board would choose how much of a pool you might want to allow departments to use every year out of reserves, and also suggested that you might base that on how much fund balance increased in the last audited year. So we're always going to be about 1.5 to 2 years behind, just so we have clear documentation of where we're at. And just then put in the guidelines about what they should talk about when they request it. And Tavis did want them to be able to acknowledge if they had carryover that they wanted to use, which I have mixed feelings about. There's sometimes the departments that are using all their budget, it's maybe because we haven't been budgeting enough. If they have carryover, it just depends on the circumstances around that. So we've asked them to explain that. how they plan to use the money, the reasons why they can't wait and request it in their next operating budget, and also a new thing that I think we should be doing more all the time, how the use and outcome aligns with the strategic plan that the board's recently adopted. I did put examples in here of how you might want to do it. I don't know that I would include that in an actual policy. That's just kind of food for thought right now. And then I also allowed some language for capital requests that come up that were not included in the capital program at the 5-year program as we adopted it through the regular budget. Pretty much the same thing. What caused the emergent request, what your planned use is and the outcomes, reasons why you don't want to wait for the approved budget, and again, how it aligns with the strategic plan. So trying to keep it fairly simple, mostly just wanting to let departments know there is a process available to request additional resources. And the interesting thing is, we're just in a different spot right now. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna open this quick because I was working through it this morning. We actually had a reduction in unassigned fund balance for fiscal '25, which is the year we would be working with right now. So typically, I would not be suggesting that we allow additional funds to be spent. However, because we have an unusual situation with the state law, I think that kind of takes that off the board right now to put those constraints on there. This is just something to think through how we might want to do it. Oops. How you might want to do it in the future, and that's really all that I wanted to talk about and get your opinions on. So mostly so departments know if that's something they should pursue requesting.
This is twofold, a little bit different than what I was thinking. Initially, when I was thinking the carryover policy, for me, it was thinking those projects that we budgeted for in a year, for whatever reason, it hasn't been completed or finished or, spent, whatever, because the project isn't quite there. For sometimes the vendor's fault, sometimes maybe some were our projects.
Yep.
And so it was allowing that carryover to just roll over, so to speak, to the next year, but to still be completed, like kind of immediately or as soon as possible. So to me, that's one category. But you're talking about new projects, and I don't know, I'm too
potentially
keen on that. Because to me, you live within a budget for a reason, and you budgeted, and we've got a 5-year plan in place. I think you're thinking of probably how to utilize those 5-year projects or get those done if there were carryover budget or money left in that goes typically to reserves that we typically put in.
And a prime example of a project like that would be what you've invested in strategic planning. We have not budgeted adequately at all for what we've invested in strategic planning. So that would be one item that would, fall under this, I guess. But you're right. I would prefer for things that didn't get done that need to, I think they still need to get budgeted in that follow-up year. So yes, I agree that's a category and it's fine to do it. They would still need to come.
They'd still need to come to the board and ask us about that carryover and going into the next year and whether we approve it or not.
I think so.
I hate to say
Yeah.
a sales pitch, but explaining really what we said, what led us to this point of why we're not having it done in the budget year, why we know we are going to get it done still, and what the timeline is and that type of thing. And
Yeah, and so the language I have here really, my thought process is it would cover that. So in item 1 where it says there are circumstances that led to that carry forward balance, that's, in my head, that's what I was thinking about. Now, we maybe need different words to make that clear to everyone.
I like the idea of this getting to a framework for a discussion. I don't want it to be misconstrued as an algorithm for approvals, right? And so I think if we create a form and then we've got 5 supervisors who can vote yes or no, but there's a there's a succinct form that we can look at that says, these are the dollars that you're saying is the source. What's able to pay for this expenditure? Now, sometimes it is gonna be, it was just a calendar issue that we budget it and, okay, then maybe that's a easier approval. Maybe if it's something that's a completely new category, but does have a justification, then maybe that's a little bit more contentious, not contentious, but maybe more of a divided vote than a unanimous, or maybe it is unanimous, and folks just have to make the case. But I think to really create this as a framework and not an algorithm.
Yeah.
And so I'm intrigued as to sort of what this looks like in like the application. Like, is it a form that you would envision is ultimately created that they have to complete these 5 or 8
I can certainly
questions? I
do
think
that, yeah.
To me, I'm kind of visual that way, right? Where, you know, if I can see the form and I can start to think through the process, doesn't mean it's necessarily approved, but
Right.
it is at least a process to get us
So
to
we have a
discuss.
timeline and, in place.
That was
And all
my
departments-
concern. There's no timeline on this. Is this gonna be used year-round, or is it just for a few months, right, a changeover? And that's what my first concern was,
My envision,
timeline.
I would envision, at least in the near term, it's year-round. The whole point of this is that
Like
it's
that.
things you didn't know about. When you set your budget, those come up, anytime. So, yeah, I
So
would.
it's still twofold, carryover for carryover and something else for kind of like, not special projects, but projects that have come up that were unplanned or somebody would like done and sees now there's an opportunity because there is funding available and we're still holding firm to 35% or whatever until the state changes it again. And we're a hold to that's our reserve number for now, right? I mean, that's what you're
Yeah.
trying to do is make sure that
Yes.
amount is in place, so we have a sound financial place
Yep.
to be, and yet still have dollars. So you're looking at doing this kind of one policy with 2 purposes. I know I didn't necessarily like for the carryover and the budget part when it was like, here's what we budgeted for, I'm sorry I didn't get it done in June, and so I really will get it done in July, but when it says departments with results that were better than expected in the budget cycle 2 years prior, and I thought sometimes we don't have that control of those budgets when you say like they have that, so that one that has had control or showed better control of their budget and one that didn't, this one can get awarded and this one can't.
Right, I don't-
Because the need might be
Correct, that's why.
And I think that's a
Desire.
part, but I think that's just a
the
form
framework.
for us to collect the information and then make a decision. I think if we get to a point where it gets really formulaic and you had to have this many dollars in order to get approved, it does become an algorithm. It does because it becomes, well, I rolled over 50,000 last year
Yeah.
or 2 years ago,
I know.
therefore I can spend it now. I don't think that's quite the
I took it
intent.
out. I took
Yeah.
it out.
But
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
concerned
So I
that could
know
happen, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think if it's just, hey, our
Yeah.
budget performed well last year, we've got some dollars, and there's an opportunity, whatever it is.
I prefer to focus on that team approach,
Yeah.
honestly. Sometimes one team member needs more than another team
Yes,
member.
yeah.
And the other thing, I also do not want people to assume that if they didn't get something done, and that's okay, we're just gonna automatically roll it into the next year. Because this does require a ton of paperwork for the finance department to keep all these budget amounts organized, right? So, we do, I think, want to still encourage our departments that when they set that original budget, they should be trying to accomplish that during that budget period. And I do feel a little bit differently about capital projects. Those, so many external things beyond our control affect those to me, that's a little bit different if we have to carry those forward and do them in future years. But yeah, I don't want any of it to be automatic. I think it all needs to be considered and
Yeah. We've had 2 departments, is it, I think, marketing and IT that have done this. And I think in the last year or so. And I think that was really what it seemed like be the board's thoughts early on, though, that it should be consistent and for everyone, not just for, you had to do it this way, but you did have to come to the board for that authorization to go carry it over.
And
This puts it
I
in
personally,
place.
the board, we've done it, the board has done it for the board too. And
Yep.
this would also help remind you when you're making those choices, I guess that's what I'm gonna say. There's nothing wrong with making that choice, particularly not in the circumstances we're in right now. But I just think it would be helpful to have all that.
Yeah, because I think it'd be nice to have a report at the end. I think we
Yes.
want to monitor, because this to me is for the exception, not to become the rule
Yes.
of always having multiple departments carry over. And so that we
Yes.
live within a budget and not, oh, well, we can carry it over.
I do think it's also a good sort of tone to set, that we don't have to just rush through a process because the fiscal year is coming to a close, and then we're all sitting here sort of, why didn't you just come to us, the next month? I understand from the staff side of they're just wanting to get stuff in, and it's in the budget, but that's when we start to run into some problems too, is when we're not necessarily pleased with the outcome, but it was a good faith effort just to get it in under that deadline. I feel like this is a process that sort of formalizes the board saying, it's all right, take a breath, do it the right way, come to us, let's just have a conversation.
Yes, but it does also, right now, we're kind of having what I'm gonna call some artificial pressure when year end comes. And I think it's far more important for audited financial purposes and just good business purposes not to rush those things at the end of June, not to rush I gotta get this, I gotta make the payment. Don't do that. I want to know that the work is done and done right, those kinds of things. I think that will relieve that pressure valve for departments, and I think that's only good for business and how we do things.
Yeah, because there's that rush we've seen.
Yeah.
To try to get things done. Didn't work.
Has this been discussed amongst department heads?
Not,
Any other employees yet?
I've talked to a few of the finance people, just to have some other people expertise like mine. I have not taken it to the department head meeting or policy review, because we kind of had a chicken and egg question earlier about how do new policies start. And the advice we were given at that time is they need to start from the board, and it makes sense, you don't want us all your departments spending a lot of time on something that you don't think is important. So my next steps would be to kind of refine this language and ask department heads and policy review for input.
I waited till after this meeting, because this was kind of our first kind of time for input. She'd given us the information, but we said this was kind of our first, and let's us look at it first and then ask others for.
It'll be interesting to see what feedback you get from that, what else can be added to it.
Yeah, I think this is a good start, because I think it's important that we do have a more formal framework, since we've done this for 2 departments now, and we've done it for ourselves. But we also, I'm just thinking about how we improve our resiliency as local governments across the state face rapidly changing set of circumstances. And we're a lot more resilient than a lot of those other places are going to be, but it's still going to be challenging times. And so if this is just one more tool that we can utilize so that we're delivering the best possible outcomes for our citizens, I think this is good.
So does that help for
Yeah.
next steps?
Yes, so that will be my next step, to
Put something together.
kind of refine the language, and then I'll take it to the next department head meeting and hopefully policy review.
Would you send that out to us first,
Sure.
for anybody's input?
Yep.
Kind of, if you have questions or something, we'll get into that. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Reports or information from the board?
I got 2 items. This week, we're now setting up for the 20th anniversary of the Iowa Irish Fest. Have a map and everything here in entertainment, if anybody wanted to look at that. But do encourage everyone to come out and be part of the festival again. It's amazing this started from a family reunion to now having up to 40,000 people come to Blackhawk County for a cultural event. So the second thing I wanted to bring up is the NACO conference was held this past couple weeks down in Louisiana. And I've signed up for numerous information to come from that, dealing with data centers. A while back, we had some information come from Mike Turner from Loudoun County, Virginia. And Loudoun County is known as the Data Center Alley. And Mike Turner is former military and had a very extensive dealings with data center development out there. He gave a presentation on a Zoom meeting. I attended and got more information from him as well. And since the NACO, I know he was doing a presentation at NACO as well. I've gotten, I don't know, probably 5. I don't know if everybody's getting all those, but 5 different things here just in this past couple of days dealing with data centers. Last week, I was encountered with someone that's part of the anti-data center group here in the Cedar Valley. And I was like, well, I don't agree with moratoriums because I have been told that moratoriums can also push away other developments. It causes a lot of uneasiness for folks looking at developing here in our community as well. But doesn't mean we can't be looking at doing something. One is I had to do some education with the person, the difference between corporate and enterprise data centers. There seems to be a loss of information dealing with that here in the community with the data centers proposed in the city of Waterloo. And then the need for having them near proximity. There's a big push on data centers because of the response time. When you're needing information or you're running an app, the further away it is in the internet, the longer that response time is. I know that's a big push now, is getting data centers that are closer for better response and speed time. But we do have a responsibility when we're elected these positions to look out for the taxpayers as well. And data centers do have a very relevant part in finance, whether it's a city or county, in that process. And that was one of the things I learned a lot in doing this research. Data centers provide municipalities with substantial economic and fiscal benefits through various forms of tax revenue, if unabated, and far exceed ones associated with property types. You have the problem with the hyperscale data centers. They're capital-intensive developments that can cost billions to construct and are filled with high-value equipment and infrastructure. And again, taxes can be levied both on the property side and the equipment side. But I guess I'm looking at some of these things and hearing what's a lot of people have misconceptions of some of this with data centers. Knowing our ordinances are very old and not been reviewed at all. I only have 5 months left in this role, but I don't see this being something. I do believe we're going to be receiving a lot of information at the ISAC conference coming up here next month as well. But I do believe it's something that we could put some thought into. Mike Turner did give us 15 best practices for communities to consider data centers, dealing with noise, power, water, emissions, setback, and appearance. This is something that we could be looking at doing, not to just give what they call as by right, as ordinance, but putting some things out there that what we want to see if one was to come this area. I do not believe Blackhawk County is an area that you're going to see a major data center come to. We don't have the power, the generation here. However, it may be something we can put forward, being proactive for other developments, may look at coming to Blackhawk County, knowing that we're looking at doing something with this, to protect ourselves and the people in our county. I'm just bringing this up as a discussion. I don't know where it's gonna go. I do expect to be bringing back a whole lot more information from MISAC. So just wanted to get it out there in people's thoughts.
I know I mentioned to Rich yesterday, back when the cities started getting all of their interest from the community and different ones about it, I'd reached out to Joseph and just said, as far as how the county was set for that type of an infrastructure, and he said, you know what, we haven't obviously got ordinances in place for that, so that would be something the board would have to direct if we wanted them to take a look at that or wanted someone else to take a look at it. That's also been one of the topics of our action groups, is kind of, that they'll be putting forward, I think, in one of their plans, for our discretion of what we'd like to do, is looking at what those are for data centers, but also other projects and how we are sitting for that, and if we would like to proceed. So I know that's, again, the water and the power, the two things that would probably restrict us, and I would think with our abundance of both Waterloo and Cedar Falls having those capabilities, they probably wouldn't look at us for a while, but it doesn't mean we couldn't look at all things considered. So thanks for doing that. But I think Joseph was saying, if that's what you want to do, let us know if that's something, you know, you'd wanted to consider. And I just thought, well, if we did, we'd certainly have to advise them of it, whether we use them or someone else, because we weren't sure what their schedule was like and how much time they'd be able to give to us to help, but they'd certainly be involved with it as the P&Z for us, so.
Well, when we had the presentation from Kathy and the economic development team,
Yeah.
you know, we had talked briefly about land use and some of those restrictions. I think it would behoove us to really be intentional, and when we look at crafting not just singular policies or adjustments, but take a look at all of it and have a really in-depth conversation. Yes, we may not currently be in a position where the county's infrastructure makes sense for one of these, but as those facilities become more efficient, just by nature of industry, I think we're going to want to make sure that we have a policy of some sort that mirrors. It's never going to be across the board, but I think we can strike a balance, or strive to strike a balance, anyways, with a lot of input. And as City Council knows, that is not always fun input. Because people are very passionate about it, and understandably so. But hopefully, maybe there's even an opportunity to educate each other. It's not just a one-way education. It's not just, here are the benefits of it, and you should just accept these. But it is, here are real people's concerns, and we should hear them out. And, I think you mentioned something along the lines of, you know, really crafting a policy of what we want. And I think that does make sense when the time is right, and I think it's having that economic development committee is helpful, so that they can help us do it in the right way, take some time, gather input from multiple trusted sources, from multiple perspectives, and craft a path forward for the opportunity for us to eventually see development outside of city lines.
Yeah, because I think we're very limited in what we'd have development in areas too, so it's not like this vast rural area we'd be looking at. There's certain things that have those requirements.
I know a couple of the different counties you hear in the news are dealing with this problem. One is who actually has the right to either start the ordinance conversation or zoning. Does it start from the board, or does it start with planning and zoning? I know that's one of the things I heard with another county here recently. The other part is you may design a policy or ordinance that you never know what the next thing is that's coming or going to be developed. So if you do something to protect from one development, are you also now eliminating the possibility of something else we don't even know about yet from coming? And that's where the concern was. If you do a moratorium, you're pushing away other developments without even knowing what they might be. So be careful on that.
I think when they set that out, though, it was really to give themselves some time to plan for it, and they just took the year and called it a moratorium.
Correct. I think I hope that we take some of the bits of both of that, right? Like, we're not in the position where we're gonna be attracting most
No.
likely a data center or something along those lines in the county. But if we take this time, knowing that it is only a matter of time until we get the request, we do the studying now. We don't have to call it a moratorium, right? It is simply a time to take time, digest the information, create the policy. People don't like the term moratorium, or they do like the, whatever.
Yeah.
Right, it's, yeah, I mean, it's semantics. It's, let's just take the time to do it right.
That's my purpose of
And
it.
we did do that, so like wind, we are prepared for wind projects and still, but it depends on where they're located and.
Sure.
Chris, did you have a comment?
I'll just add, whether we call it a moratorium or whether we call it, needing to pause for review. I don't think there's any community in Iowa that's ready for a data center, quite frankly. The technology is advancing extraordinarily rapid, and there are certain places that they're going to make sense to be in, and a whole lot of places that they're not going to make sense that we're not even taking into account. You look at how rapidly developing it is in other countries that have more regulation, like Finland, where they're tying the wastewater into central heat systems. There are places in the United States that have central heat systems to be tied into, whether it's campuses or certain cities or military bases, but that's not where we're planning right now. Right now, it's just a nationwide race to the bottom of who's got the cheap utility rates and the loose restrictions, and they're gonna come in there, and what happens community and community over and over again is that utility rates skyrocket for the consumers, and water, which is becoming just more and more of a precious resource, which we still don't have a detailed understanding of how much groundwater we truly have in Iowa. It's a finite resource. It's not being replenished at the rate that we're using it.
Thank you. Anything else? I was gonna say, the only comment, Katie Susan reached out to me again and about that work session for our 2027 contract. I said everyone would be back today, and I'd approach the group on when we'd like to do that work session, and we don't have to decide today, but I said, we did mention that we could do it at a separate meeting, have a work session, like downstairs in a round table type thing, as opposed to this, so if you'd like to do a date differently than the supervisors meeting, or you'd like to do it at the same time, I need to know that and throw out some dates and then see what works for everybody. Do you have a preference?
Yeah, I don't have a preference.
Preferably not the 11th, but.
Oh, but I meant as far as like a work
But I don't have
session versus a separate kind of informal one versus the formal,
I always like the more informal, it just feels more conversational.
yeah.
Really
And I
get
don't
down to
know who
brass
all would be
tacks.
involved, but I
Yeah.
assume they'd have some staff as well, or board. Days to avoid, maybe I should say.
Yeah, that's probably.
Okay, give me those. Yeah, and in the next couple weeks, do we think, or do you want to go out further?
Within the next 3 weeks, doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I'll be at ISAC the
Yeah,
19th through the 21st.
okay. That's it then. All right.
And that week of
I'll look
the
at
10th
that.
through the 13th is tough for me, but.
Yep.
I
Okay.
virtually get in, but.
And the last thing was just the fact, and I'm gonna kill his name, but it was Dan Putbreeze or Putbreeze, the gentleman on the dangerous dog ordinance. He'd reached out to me and wanted to know what the next steps were, if he needed to come back to the board to, see where we were with that. And I said, no. Mike had been working on it and been on vacation and was doing some catch up and that type of thing, and so, I don't know, Mike eventually.
Still in the pipeline.
Still in the pipeline,
Yep.
but I said he talked about something of going to court in the next 30 to 60 days, and he wanted to be able to say more than just that he'd been here and asked for a dangerous dog ordinance. And so I said, well, I'd like to be able to respond to him on something like that to see where we're at with it. So as soon
We
as-
should have some in the next couple of weeks. There's just a little more in the hopper than usual right now.
Overflowing. Hopper's always full.
It's, yeah.
Not always, but it's always how full it is.
Throw another log
There's
in the
always
fire.
room.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll respond back to him
Good
on
deal.
that then. So, all right, that was it for me. Thank you. So motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, you all.